Ms. Soloway, we'll now start with Mrs. Block for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Soloway, to you and your colleagues for joining us here today to share with our committee the role of your office, your mandate, and some of the pressures that you find yourself under. With the information that you've shared in your opening statement today, the numbers are somewhat alarming in terms of your ability to keep up with the pressure. I think you said in your comments that there is no plateau in sight, that the numbers just keep adding up and adding up. And so I guess keeping those comments in mind, my first question would be, with taking all of that into consideration, do you believe that your office is able to fulfill its mandate?
Well, yes, but not as efficiently and effectively as I'd like. And as I've mentioned in my opening statement, I believe that the risk is there, that there could come a time when there may be allegations that may not see the light of day. We are working diligently at trying to make sure that doesn't happen, but we are at a point in time where I cannot guarantee that we will be able to get to everything. So we haven't given up yet, and as I mentioned, we are going to be asking for increased support, but there is a risk, a very, very real risk, that we will not be able to deal with all of the cases before us.
Thank you. I'm not sure. I'm taking a look back at your opening comments. Did you provide us with the average length of time that it takes you to render a decision on perhaps a complaint that's been submitted?
I did not. I believe that we are currently looking at some cases waiting a decision on admissibility that are, give or take, approximately a year old. As late as last month, I was looking at 14 months, but I think we might have it down to 12 months now. But if you would want a definitive answer, I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And I guess you may not be able to answer this question, but so what actually happens for that individual who has launched a complaint, is waiting to find out if it's admissible? Do they simply go back to the work that they've been doing and just wait for a response from your office?
Well, I think that it's important to highlight that there are two tracks. We have submissions that are disclosures of wrongdoing or information that indicate that there might be wrongdoing or alleged wrongdoing. And then we have complaints of reprisal against somebody who might have submitted an alleged disclosure. So with respect to the reprisals, under the statute, we're required to provide an answer within 15 days, and we do that. So anybody who alleges that they've been reprised against will receive a response within 15 days as to whether or not we're going to be investigating it. The time that it takes to investigate, however, is a completely different story. On the disclosure side, it's about letting potential, there are a number of different implications to that. One is that if there is something to the disclosure, if it's something that should be investigated, it is allowed to fester for that much longer. And if there is, if it is the kind of conduct that could be, for example, a recent case that I had that is on our website, available on our website, where there was a person in a very senior capacity who was a serial harasser for a long period of time, and that was wrongdoing. And so if we don't get to something like that, obviously people continue to suffer over a longer period of time.
Thank you very much. MacDonald-Laurier Institute claims that our laws protect the wrongdoers more than whistleblowers. Can you comment on that?
I'm not really sure what they mean by that. I would have to ask them what they meant by that. In order to arrive at a finding of wrongdoing, there has to be evidence on a balance of probabilities. So I'm only guessing now. It may be that some perceive that to be tipping the scales in favor of the respondent in the cases. Because if we have some information or some indication, but not on a balance of probabilities, I could not, under the law, come to a conclusion that there has been wrongdoing. It is possible that some people perceive that to be tipping the scales in favor of an alleged wrongdoer. At the same time, principles of natural justice apply and due process applies, and the balance of probabilities has been or is the test that I am required to apply.
Thank you. Of the 15 recommendations that were tabled by the committee in 2017, how many have been adopted and are currently part of your office now?
Okay, I'm going to have to refer to Brian, not having been around in 2017, so Brian Radford, if you
I'm going to have to interrupt because it is our time. Perhaps you can get to that answer in the next round, or perhaps you can provide that to us in writing. We will now go over to Ms. Rochefort, please, for 6 minutes.
Oui, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So thank you, Madame Salaway, Mr. Radford. I'd just like to ask a few questions with respect to, in your letter, you say it is your view that to protect the independence of the office, that there should come to Parliament for the budget. So in relationship to that, I noted online that they list all of the ombudsman offices, and included in there is your office, the Integrity Commissioner is included. And I think there's about 15 different, the Canada Post Ombudsman, National Capital Commission Ombudsman, the Privacy Commissioner of Canada, the Office of the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner of Canada, and so on. So you're included in that list of what they say are similar organizations within the public service, is how they positioned it. But how would you define the differences with your department, or the Integrity Commissioner, and the Ombudsman offices that are listed on the public sector website?
I'm not aware of that website. I'm happy to address the differences between ombuds and what we do. It is not our role, other than, there's an exception to this, but mostly speaking, it is not our role to mediate disputes or look for a mutually agreeable solution, because we're dealing with allegations. This is when we're dealing with disclosures. I'll talk about reprisals in a moment because it's a bit different there. But for disclosures, they are disclosures of wrongdoing. It's like, so people are coming forward and saying, you know, we have evidence and there's enough there to say that something untoward is going on. So we investigate that with a view to obtaining or getting to a point where we can have accountability, if indeed there is wrongdoing, accountability for that wrongdoing. So the disclosure is not personally involved or in the disclosure, even if they may be one of the people in the event, depending on what the nature of the disclosure is. On the reprisal side, we do have a mechanism whereby we can offer conciliation to the parties, but we actually don't do that. We typically get the services of an objective conciliator who takes it offline, and we see whether they can reach an agreement. So in other words, but for the most part, there's a fundamental difference. They want to see issues resolved between parties, and our mandate is to find wrongdoing if it exists and to ensure that there is accountability. It's a very different mandate. I'm not sure if I've explained it very well. Brian could do a much better job from a legal standpoint, for sure.
No, that's an excellent description.
We only have Ms. Soloway for an hour with us today. Thanks. Mr. Patzer, go ahead, please, for 5.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today. Just at the start of the meeting, I went to your website, and I noticed that there was an info block, and I was just talking to some other folks, and they ran into the same thing as well, too, and I actually just got a quick screenshot of it here. Says the office is receiving an unprecedented number of disclosures of wrongdoing, reprisal
We only have Ms. Soloway for an hour with us today. Thanks. Mr. Patzer, go ahead, please, for 5.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today. Just at the start of the meeting, I went to your website and I noticed that there was an info block, and I was just talking to some other folks, and they ran into the same thing as well too. And I actually just got a quick screenshot of it here. Says the office is receiving an unprecedented number of disclosures of wrongdoing, reprisal complaints, and general inquiries. As a result of increased submissions, delays in the analysis and investigations of files are expected. In the numbers that you presented to this committee, it's actually kind of shocking, and I would say alarming, at how sharp of a climb there is in cases. Do you have any reason for why that is?
Everyone's asking me that, and I have no way of knowing. I can tell you that it's not I have no reason to believe that it's because there's more wrongdoing. There's no data that would suggest that. I can't disprove that either, but there's no data that would suggest that. My sense is that it's in my career, I've seen the startup of many new organizations, and particularly those that render a service to the public. It takes a while for those people who might access that service to even realize that it's there, and then once they do, to have enough trust in it to bring it forward. My best guess, because I have no way of verifying it, is that I do believe that the office was established in 2007, and I think that at a certain point in time, there was a critical mass period where people knew enough about it to start using it, and then that gave rise to more and more and more. That is my belief, but I have no evidence or proof to say that. But if you're asking me what I think, that's what I think.
Do you think, are you concerned about there maybe being a culture that's been instilled that's enabled some of this? And part of it too is because it takes so long to get an answer, or because there's so many cases, do you think that people maybe just feel like, well, they're not gonna get to it anyway, so I can just do whatever I want, and what's anyone gonna do about it? Are you worried that there might be a culture of that developing or brewing?
I'm worried that that could develop. Again, I don't have evidence that it's brewing, but it would not be an illogical consequence of the situation.
Wow. And then when you look at the stats, like, okay, so prior to 2021, everybody was working in offices. We have a lot of the public service now working from home. Do you think that there is a correlation between people not being in an environment where they are with people who might be abusive, might be committing serious wrongdoings, as you said, in the nature of it, but then now that people are working from home, that they now feel safe to make complaints? Do you think that there's a correlation to that?
Again, I don't have evidence, but if you're asking me for my feeling on it, I wouldn't say so, because people could be reprised against whether they're working from home or working in the office. People can be subject to wrongdoings, whether they're at home or in the office. So I don't think so, but I don't have evidence to back that up. It's just, if you're asking me my view, that's kind of what I think.
Okay, there was an article from 2012 that the Government Accountability Project announced Canada's whistleblower protections are among the weakest in the world, tied with Lebanon and Norway. The project was especially critical of the fact that only 8 retaliation cases have been heard by the Public Servants Disclosure Protection Tribunal, despite PSDPA having come into force 17 years ago. There's lots of other quotes kind of about the functionality so far here. I guess why are we viewed as having some of the weakest protections in the world?
I'm not trying to be evasive. I think you'd probably have to ask the authors of that. I'm not sure. Again, my sense is that they're looking at a legislative framework and trying, which, having worked internationally a lot, it really is hard to compare jurisdictions. But I do know that there was a task force that was struck about around 2 years ago, to look at the PSDPA because of some of the articles, such as the one that you're citing, a recognition that I think improvements are required. I am keen to know what the outcome of that task force is. And I'm hopeful that to the extent that there are weaknesses in the act, and there are weaknesses in the act, I'm not pretending otherwise, in my view, that's my personal view. I'm looking forward to seeing that report to see what proposals are being made.
Boudreau for 2.5, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. So there's missing millions that you're short. If I understood your figures a little earlier, 800 submissions which completely exceed the resource capacity that you have, whether they are under review or being investigated. To your mind, what is the essential role that you have? I think that the impact clarifies clearly essentially the public should have and develop trust in our public institutions. So we need an instrument such as the Commission to investigate serious cases of wrongdoing. It's essential. Without that, there's no overview. I can't imagine a credible public service that doesn't have an overview function, oversight. But insofar as the resources that you have at hand, how can you qualify the perception of the results of your work? A scale of 1 to 10. Well, it depends who's answering the question. We do have a mechanism that can judge a certain way, but some people are satisfied, others are not, and it's when a decision goes in a direction or trend that they appreciate, they'll say yes, they trust. If it goes counter to their beliefs or ideology, no, they won't be happy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Time is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Madame Soloway, I'm reading through your opening remarks about the sustained increase in submissions, and while we don't know what's driving that, the submissions of wrongdoing have more than doubled since 2020, but the staffing has not kept pace due to limited resources. Could you speak a little bit about how large is the current backlog? Now, I think you mentioned it was a year to, or 12 months, for 14 months to 12 months in terms of the timing. But can you speak to number of cases and what service standards are, or service standard targets are realistic under the present funding?
Okay, thank you for that question. So I'll give you an example. So for example, for investigations, from the time the investigation is launched until the end, our service standard had typically been with 80% of the time to be able to complete the investigation within a year. Okay, we're not meeting that now. There's no way we can meet that now. I would have to get those statistics for you. They're readily available. I just don't have them with me to tell you how often we're meeting it now. But we're not. And now we have 66 pending investigations, and I have 6 investigators and 3 team leaders. Now, even if an average investigator, or it doesn't really work that way, but let's say they can complete 4 to 5 cases a year, doing the math, We understand that we have now a years-long backlog in terms of completing some of these investigations, with more being added to the pile weekly. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Partially, and maybe you can submit some of the statistics to the committee after, if that's possible. So when I look at the 66 investigations, for instance, that may be in the backlog, is it safe to assume that some are more serious than others? Are you prioritizing some over others, or is it a first in, first out?
It's a combination of both. We will not investigate anything that is not a big deal. So they're all big deals, to be clear. In terms of prioritizing, it's not necessarily strictly first in, first out. A lot has to do with which investigators have capacity and what they are more specialized in. And it's about managing everything all at once. So I don't have a strict rule, first in, first out. And in fact, it's not the case. So even, even in admissibility, I'm trying to work from both ends so that some people are receiving very timely responses and some people aren't. And I'm hoping that we'll meet somewhere in the middle. We have gained efficiencies. We have been producing on the analysis side, the admissibility analysis side. We completed more than, I believe, I would have to go to the statistics, hang on, but I believe that we've completed more this year than we have in all of than we received in all of last year, but because our numbers are rising so rapidly, we're still falling behind. So submissions received thus far in 2025, we've received 444, and we've completed 395 analyses. In all of last year, we received 419. So we will certainly complete more this year than all of the ones we got in last year combined, but we're still going to fall behind. Plus, we have older cases that are still there. Brian, do you want to add anything?
Our rate of efficiency has increased every year. Last year, of the 419 files received, we completed 342 of them. And as the Commissioner indicated, this year we've completed 395 so far. We're trying new ways to address cases as quickly as possible. And as the Commissioner indicated, we're not just addressing old files in the backlog. We are addressing on a weekly basis new files that come in, plus at the same time the older files, so that we can tackle as many as possible as quickly as possible.
And just very briefly, just a quick status update on the task force that was founded in 2022.
I don't know. My understanding through the grapevine, but it's only grapevine, is that they've completed their report. But more than that, I couldn't tell you.
Thank you. We'll now go to Mr. Gasparo. Sorry, before you do start, Mr. Gasparo, I'm going to mention now before I forget, we do have a item within this committee. Any documents or any responses promised are required within 21 working days. We just ask you to remind that to be sent to the clerk. Mr. Gasparo, the time is yours, please. Go ahead, sir.
Great, thank you. And to the witnesses, I want to thank you for your public service. Like one of my colleagues, I have some experience at the municipal level dealing with, integrity commissioner, and both of your CVs are quite impressive. So, as I said to other witnesses, the fact that you chose public service, thank you. Can you explain what protections are currently in place for public servants who report wrongdoing?
That's a very good question. Thank you for it.
It doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
No, it's a very, very, it's a really good question, because we've struggled with that notion of protection. And the fact of the matter is that en amont, as they would say in French, there's not a lot we can do. The way we protect is by not, by keeping the information that we get confidential. But of course, when you're talking about due process and people being given the right to respond in a fair way to allegations against them, there may be some aspects that, in order to give that person the full right of defense, have to be disclosed. So I can say that we protect by not divulging anything that we have to, unless we have to and until we have to. We also have the reprisal regime, but again, it's ex post facto. It launches once somebody is already alleging that they've suffered a reprisal. I guess one hopes that there's a deterrent effect because those measures are there. So it does exist as a deterrence, but per se, I have no jurisdiction to, for example, pull somebody out of a difficult situation and give them something alternate to do or whatever. I have no powers to do that. So any protections come in the form of deterrence because there is the complaint regime, and also in keeping things confidential. I'm just going to ask Brian if he wants to add anything to that. I think it is a really good question and probably an area, I would imagine that the task force, I'm assuming, might have looked at, and it'll be interesting to see what they say.
Do you think those protections have been are well communicated within the public service? Are people within the public service aware that there are some levels of safeguards and protection for them if they launch a complaint or raise an issue?
Even before my arrival, the office had worked for years very hard at raising awareness. And I do believe that a lot of the reason for the surge that we're seeing now is because there's more awareness. Yet and again, I have no data, but and it might be time to try to acquire some. But my belief is, or my suspicion is, that there are many people who don't understand or don't know about the possibility out there. Now, there are other what we call internal mechanisms inside many departments where there's a senior officer in charge of disclosures. And there are also ombuds persons, as raised before, and we hope that internally in departments, they are raising awareness amongst their staff as well. It's a shared responsibility to try to get the word out that that is the case.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gaspar. We'll go to Mrs. Block for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Your office has been investigating complaints of reprisals of 2 former witnesses that came forward during our ArriveCan study who testified at this committee. And without giving us any details, because I'm sure you cannot do that, do you finally have a timeline for this investigation that you can give us?
The reason I can't answer I can't give you an answer on that without disclosing anything about specific cases. I'm going to refer to Brian, who will say what we could say or say that we can't. Brian.
At this point, we don't have a timeline for the completion of the investigations that you are referring to. All reprisal investigations require the submission of a preliminary investigation report for people involved. That takes time, the consideration of their submissions. So it would not be prudent for us to comment further on that particular allegation or investigation.
So when did your investigations begin?
In those particular I don't have the dates when those investigations began, but like all reprisal complaints, the admissibility analysis would have been completed in 15 days from the receipt of the form. And within 15 days, the commissioner would have decided to investigate some or all of the allegations. So that would bring us back to, I would imagine, about a year ago. But I'm not sure of the commencement, of the date of the commencement.
Okay, thank you. Again, it's been noted by my colleagues that on your website, you note that you are receiving an unprecedented number of disclosures of wrongdoing. And although some details may not be public due to ongoing investigations, can you provide us with which departments appear to have the highest number of reports of wrongdoing?
No. Brian?
We have never reported on the number of disclosures made from a particular department. Now, in a large organization, it's not surprising that we would receive several or even numerous disclosures. We're talking about very, very large departments of many thousands of people. Until now, so far at least, we have not disclosed the number of disclosures coming from specific departments or the regions. There's an element of confidentiality to that, because if we do it for some, we may have to do it for others. And there are very small organizations where the chief executive of that organization or the management there would be very surprised to learn that a disclosure was made against them, or two or three. I think it could potentially expose whistleblowers who come to us, because when a person comes to us, if something is not investigated, the only person who knows is the discloser. We do not share that information with the department. So there's an important element of confidentiality associated with that information.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. So can you tell us how many whistleblowers have been reinstated to their jobs after reprisal since the creation of your office? Do you track that, I guess?
Well, first of all, we are aware of the reprisal complaints that have been made to us, a number of investigations that we have conducted. As you may know, 10 cases were referred to the tribunal, and of those cases, 2 went the entire way of a hearing, and others were resolved by way of mediation. The settlements are generally confidential between the parties. The parties seek that confidentiality. We ourselves offer conciliation during the course of a reprisal investigation. We have completed approximately 26 successful conciliations over the years. Of those 26, many people are still employed in the public service. Others retired, others accepted a financial settlement. Those agreements are also confidential at the request of the parties themselves.
Thanks. Ms. Goodrow, please, and then we'll finish up with Mr. Patzer and Ms. Rochefort. Apologize. I thought that's what I said. I apologize. My mistake. I'm new to this, folks.
Nearly.
Okay, that's it for today. Goodbye. No.